Good morning, everyone. Can we all take our seats, please? We'll begin in about 30 seconds. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. Today is May 27th. It's 9:09 a.m. And at this time, I'd like to have Pohai please give a roll call. Trustee Ahuna.
Present.
Trustee Akaka.
Here.
Trustee Aquino. Trustee Galuteria. Trustee Lindsay. She will be virtual. She should be joining us. Trustee Souza. Vice Chair Wahe'e. And Chair Lapa. Hi, present. Okay. 7 present. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Pohai. At this time, I'd like to introduce my staff. To my right is my trustee aide, Pohai Ryan, and Secretary Summer Soares. What I'd like to do at this time is to introduce our CEO, Stacy Ferreira. I'm trying to pronounce it good. Go ahead, Stacy.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, Trustees. Joining us in person and online, we have our Chief Operating Officer, Kehao Pu'u, our Endowment Director, Ryan Lee, our Financial Analyst, Grace Chen, and our IT Systems Engineers and Administrators, Daniel Santos and Arlene Aguinaldo. Mahalo.
Mahalo, our CEO, Kapohana. At this time, we're going to move on to our agenda. Item A, presentation by the OHA Board of Trustees, our budget briefings for the proposed Biennium Budget for Fiscal Year 2026 and Fiscal Year 2027. These are the budgets of the Office of the Board of Trustees. Question and answers with the OHA BOT Chairperson of the Committee on Budget and Finance, and appropriate staff. And naturally, we have, if you have any testimonies, it will be done online. You're given 5 minutes. In the event that this is a public broadcast is interrupted, cannot be restored, the meeting may continue as an audio only through the phone and webinar ID provided at the beginning of this agenda. Meeting recordings will be made available on OHA's website as soon as the meeting is completed. Public testimony will be called for each agenda item and must be limited to matters listed on the meeting agenda. Hawaii Revised Statutes, Chapter 92, Public Agency Meetings and Records prohibits board members from discussing or taking action on matters not listed on the meeting agenda. Testimony can be provided to the trustees, Board of Trustees, either as a written testimony and or live oral testimony online or at the physical meeting location during the remote meeting. Persons wishing to provide written testimony on items listed on the agenda should submit testimony via email to botmeetings@oha.org or via post mail to the Office of Hawaiian Affairs Board of Trustees, 560 North Limits Highway, Suite 200, Honolulu 96817. Testimonies requested to be received at least 24 hours prior to the scheduled meeting to allow board members with sufficient time to review testimony before the meeting. Please note that all written testimony will be posted on OHA's meeting website. Persons wishing to provide oral testimony online during the remote meeting, please refer to the date-specific meetings links provided in the agenda above. If you're unable to link directly, please copy and paste the link into your web browser. To provide oral testimony online, you will need a computer, a device to connect the virtual meeting, internet access, and a microphone. Persons wishing to provide oral testimony at the physical meeting location can sign up the day of the meeting at the physical meeting location. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes. And when you're called upon, you are to turn on your mic and begin your testimony. At about 4 minutes and 30 seconds into your testimony, we'll give you a heads up to wrap up your testimony. If you will willfully disrupt the meeting or do not disconnect on your own, our staff will remove you from the Zoom meeting. You can continue to view the remainder of the meeting on the live stream by telephone by live stream or by telephone as provided at the beginning of this agenda. Oral testimony or at physical location will be limited to just 5 minutes. All right, thank you so much, trustees. At this time, I'd like to call upon Chair Kahele for his presentation.
Hey, well, good afternoon, Chair Lapa and trustees.
Good morning.
It's not Samoa time. No, it's Hawaiian time.
Just came home.
It's great to be here. I hope everyone had a restful weekend and a good Memorial Day weekend. And I just want to mahalo, Chair Alapa, for you and your staff's, really hard work over the last month in helping lead the entire OHA enterprise through these budget hearings. I think they have been extremely informative. Our staff and their different PAIA have had an opportunity to really showcase what they do in their PAIA and really express to the trustees what they need to really effectively execute our strategic plan and move OHA in the right direction. So I want to commend you for your work on that.
Thank you.
And
Mahalo nui for that.
today's presentation is the culmination of these budget hearings where we've had a chance now to listen to various different PAIA, and the Board of Trustees now gets a chance to weigh in on our board budget. First and foremost, want to make sure everyone has the correct presentation, hard copies and digitally online. This budget is a very thoughtful budget. It's one that we've worked together with staff on the board suite, as well as different components over the last few months to include the ad hoc committee to create what I think is a transformational budget for the Board of Trustees. It takes the board in a different direction than it had previously in years past. And, I'm proud to bring this budget in front of the board for its consideration, along with all the other budgets that have come before the board that we'll need to make some tough choices on what we're able to fund, given the limited resources and the resource constrained environment that we're in. But we'll jump right into that. So the basics of the board's budget is the PowerPoint presentation in front of you, as well as the supplemental budget tables and the travel worksheets that we have as well. We really tried to look at what previous budgets and past practices and forecasts for the next 2 fiscal years, what this board will be doing, where it wants to prioritize its resources, and do it in the best way possible, so we're being good fiduciary stewards of our beneficiary resources. So first and foremost, the first few slides are nothing new to all of us who have served here at OHA, either as a trustee or as a member of the staff. But for our beneficiaries throughout the state who will be watching this live or may choose to watch it at another time, it's important to set the groundwork and the framework and the foundation for the overview of the Board of Trustees and our responsibilities here at the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. So first and foremost, on slide 1, if we can move to the next slide, is the purpose, the function, and the responsibilities of the Board of Trustees. And really that is to set policy and to manage the agency's trust, its fiduciary assets, whether that's financial assets, development, land assets, everything that creates and forms a corpus of our trust is this board's responsibility to manage it in a prudent way. The board meets regularly, primarily here at Nalama Kukui, just off of Nimitz Highway here in Honolulu at our main corporate headquarters, I guess you could say. And then by statute, we are required to go annually to each of the major neighbor islands. And typically we do that in the second half of the year, which we start next week when we go to our Chair Emerita's beautiful island of Maui to have our site visit and a community meeting, as well as a board meeting there on the island of Maui. That'll be next week. The Board of Trustees has 3 standing committees that all board members are a part of. That was recently adopted in October of last year by updating the board's bylaws. We now have 3 committees. One of them is the Beneficiary Advocacy and Empowerment. It's chaired by Trustee Galutaria. It focuses really on our legislative and our advocacy efforts along certain lines of health and human services, education, housing, and really to be an advocate for Native Hawaiian rights and entitlements. Our second committee is Budget and Finance, chaired by Trustee Alapa. It sets the overall fiscal budget for the biennium, the next 2 budget years, the next budget cycle, and it ensures proper planning, oversight, and use of our OHA trust funds. And finally, our third committee is our Committee on Investment and Land Management. It's chaired by Trustee Souza. And this committee oversees our financial assets, both its real estate holdings as well as its financial holdings, its global market securities, and it develops policies that manage the Native Hawaiian Trust Fund that currently is valued at about $595 million, give or take. And so it's very, very important committee as well. And that was something new that this board did in October of last year. Next slide. OHA was created by the state's constitution in 1978 by the people of Hawaii. The state legislature in 1979, taking the constitutional mandate by the people of Hawaii, legislated Chapter 10 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes. There was a subsequent election in 1980 where the first Board of Trustees was convened. Chapter 10 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes outlines OHA's statutory mandates. And there's a few of them that we've highlighted. The first is the 10-2, which is really the purpose of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. And there's 6 really important statutory purposes that mandate OHA's work, right? One of them is the betterment of Native Hawaiians using a pro rata share of the public land trust. That pro rata share is typically determined as 20% of all of a certain portion of lands that form the public land trust that were part of the ceded lands corpus. The second is the betterment of Hawaiians. This is a distinction between the Admissions Act that really focused on Native Hawaiians as defined through the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act and expanded it to all Hawaiians, not differentiating Hawaiians by blood quantum. The third, it's the principal public agency in this state for all programs for Native Hawaiians and Hawaiians. Its policy and advocacy assessment is very important for Native Hawaiians and Hawaiians. So advocacy is a core function of this organization. Another one is to receive and disperse grants and donations from all sources, Native Hawaiian and Hawaiian programs, and then finally to serve as a receptacle for reparations. So at its core, advocacy and grants is what I view as 2 very, very important mandates for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. Next slide. 10-5 talks about the powers and duties of the board. It is to manage and invest and administer its trust assets, including its real property assets, to develop policies that provide grants and technical financial assistance. It is also to develop and update periodically its strategic plan. And currently our strategic plan is the Mauliola Strategic Plan. It's a 15-year plan adopted by the board in 2018 and will probably be worked on this year and have a good update, which by statute this board is required to do. And it's been almost 6 years now since the Mauliola plan was adopted. So it is probably time to evaluate its overall effectiveness and update where necessary. We serve as a clearinghouse for programs and funding, conducting whether it's research or promoting the establishment of service agencies. And finally, 10-14 talks about the preparation of a budget and submission to the board. So we have an opportunity, and we give that opportunity to our beneficiaries across the state to weigh in on our board's budget. I want to mahalo the team that did those community meetings presenting this budget to our different beneficiaries across the Paeana. Next slide. 10-19 is a Hawaiian registry. The OHA shall maintain a registry of all Hawaiians, wherever such programs may reside. That's through our Hawaiian Registry Program. Talk about that a little bit later today. We also manage and finance all our projects and loan programs that are beneficial to Native Hawaiians. We have the power to issue revenue bonds. That's something that this board should consider doing, especially when we're looking at large capital projects, such as maybe in Kakako Makai and here in Iwilei with our transit or in developments in the future. We have the opportunity to issue revenue bonds to do that and to float those bonds, whether it's revenue bonds or general purpose bonds. 1022 is also the opportunity to adjust rates, fees, and charge to cover operational costs such as bond obligations or other financial commitments. So that's generally the overview of what the Board of Trustees does. These are just a few that are highlighted by Chapter 10, and I welcome anyone to take an opportunity to go and review Chapter 10 to see fully what OHA's statutory requirements are. Next slide. Board of Trustees is structured as such. We have 9 trustees. We have a board chair. We have a vice chair, 3 standing committee chairs, and we have 2 assigned staff to each trustee, as well as a chief of staff and a deputy chief of staff. Next slide.
I think we need to revisit that org chart and redraw that because it's not correctly aligned. It's the 9 trustees and then the aides and so forth. Yeah, more like this.
Next slide. Okay, for our goals and objectives for the next 2 fiscal years, we have both spending priorities and specific goals and initiatives. So 3 spending priorities really dictate where we invest our resources. One of them, and we've heard of them, it's been a continuing theme throughout our budget presentations, is that OHA is an employer of choice in the next 2 fiscal years. We do this through competitive compensation and through benefits that attract and retain top talent here at the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. The second is to improve our operational processes and infrastructure to ensure that our resources are prioritized, they're automated where possible, and we're used to our fullest potential. 3 is to execute transformational programs and services in our Mauna I Mauliola initiatives that advance 4 pillars around healthcare, health, education, housing, and economic stability. Specific goals and initiatives are to leverage and grow those resources by growing our assets through innovation and collaboration that can not just maximize resources, but make a lasting impact throughout our communities. The second is civic engagement and education for Native Hawaiians, ensuring that we're providing opportunities for Native Hawaiian leadership, we're mobilizing Indigenous voices, and preparing our future generations to strengthen and thrive in Lahui. And the third is to build a stronger OHA for a stronger Lahui. We do that through building a strong, respectful, and accountable organization that's guided by Kukulu Hou, which is to create lasting trust, integrity, and impact for future generations. So those are the goals, those are the objectives, and the spending priorities, and the specific goals and initiatives will be appropriate as such. Next slide. This is the overall budget request. So the top line number for OHA's budget request is about $17.2 million. The budget is broken down between personnel, which is 9.1, and we'll cover each one of these in detail in subsequent slides. But if you look at this slide, our personnel budget, which includes the latest OHA trustee salaries as set by the 2024 commission, as well as the trustee staff, our secretaries and aides that are now set by the ad hoc committee, as well as our deputy chief of staff and our chief of staff, make up our total personnel budget of $9.1 million. It's a significant part of our budget, majority of which is personnel and fringe. Then we have our overhead, we have contracts, we have equipment, programs, and then travel. Travel makes up another big chunk of our budget. This board does a lot of travel, especially because of our mandated neighbor island site visits, it requires a lot of resources for all of us to fly to the neighbor islands to do this, as well as many of the continental United States or even international travel that many of our trustees do throughout the year. But this is the overall budget pie for this budget for the next biennium. These are for the next 2 years, yeah. Fiscal year 26, which starts on July 1st, 2025, as well as fiscal year 27, which starts on July 1st, 2026. Next slide. Okay, further breaking that down, if we start again from the top, you have your personal budget at $9.1 million. As I discussed, the Board of Trustee office, so the second bullet is our trustee salaries that are now set by the OHA Salary Commission. There is another salary increase on July 1st, and there'll be another salary increase next July 1st. So our trustee salaries are $1.4 million for the next fiscal year and $1.5 million in FY27. They total $2.9 million. Then we have our office staff. Those are our secretaries, our aides, our deputy, and our chief. These are adjusted per the ad hoc committee's recommendations, and those are that have been now adopted by the board. That's 2.8 in FY26, 2.9 in FY27 for a total of $5.8 million. In addition, this is will be covered on a previous slide, is the possibility of the board having full-time legal counsel. And so the personnel and fringe of $123,375, that would cover from January 1st through June 30th, 2026. And then that's personnel and fringe. And then for the entire FY27, personnel and fringe would be $246 for a total of $371. Overhead would be general board of trustee uses for supplies. It's $2,800. Previous slide. Contracts, we have $208,000 worth of contracts. I'll talk about these on those slides, but generally speaking, there are contract negotiations. This board will have to negotiate with our CEO, our administrator, her contract next year, 2026. So there's contract money for that. There's also professional photos for the new board of trustees that will be elected after November of 2026. So we prepare for that investiture, as well as board legal counsel services that are currently under contract through July and expect to be extended at least through December 31st of this calendar year. And then finally, travel, which is $589,000, $294 in FY26, $294 in FY27. These will cover things like our Neighbor Island Community and Board of Trustee meetings, the Merry Monarch, CNHA Convention, Kamehameha Dele draping in DC, and other conferences and trainings. And we'll go through those line by line in the travel worksheets and what each trustee is planning to do. Next slide. Equipment is things like subscriptions. Our board secretary uses different types of platforms to transcribe our minutes. We have artificial intelligence platforms that we're using. We're going to be subscribing to a survey platform so we can do quarterly surveys of our staff to see how we're doing from a staff's perspective. And so that's where our equipment comes into play. Our programs, we'll discuss those in detail as well. Those are 3.7 in 26 and 3.6 in 27 for a total of 7.3 million. This also includes the resources required for us to mail our Board of Trustee mailings every other week, which totaled about $12,000. And this also includes our trustee allowance. Every trustee gets a $7,200 annual allowance starting on July 1st. Each trustee has an opportunity to use that however they see fit within certain parameters and guidelines. So that includes that as well. Within our programs budget, there are some programs that are currently not in the Board of Trustee office budget. Those are listed from Kawana Kohal down to the OHA paid family leave. I'll cover all of these in subsequent slides. And then there are programs that are in current PAIA budgets, like AHA Opio and Avaya Ulu. But in this board budget, we have adjusted those numbers. Typically, we have increased them based on the testimonies that we've received. And then for programs that there were no change, but were in the budget, like our DC Fellowship Program, that is in there as well. Next slide. These are our FY 26-27 priorities at a glance. So these are, the board is doing something that it hasn't done in the past, and that is entertaining and considering capital improvement project requests and programmatic funding requests from trustees that have spent time in their communities, that know their communities best, and know the unique needs of their communities. And so similar to the legislature that considers legislative requests for CIP projects or programmatic funding, this board will be able to consider those requests as well. And we've worked and attempted to work with every trustee over the last 2 months to find out what their priorities are, and this budget reflects several of those that were recommended for the board to consider. This map of the state shows where some of those projects are and where they're spread out throughout the state and have the potential to affect our beneficiaries the most, to include in Washington, D.C., where our Congressional Fellowship Program will be. Next slide. Okay, so now we start to get into some of these programmatic and CIP projects that I'll remind you are $7.3 million in total, 3.7 in 26 and 3.6 in 27. So this first project is Kawana Nicole Hall and gymnasium renovation in Hilo. Just for some context, about 20 years ago, the old Kawana Nicole Hall, which sits on Keaukaha Homestead, was in severe need of tear down and renovation. And under the leadership of Chair Bobby Lindsay at the time and Kama Hopkins, who was his trustee aide, they represented Hawaii Island on the board. They worked with DHHL at the time and the County of Hawaii to construct what currently is today the Kawana Nicole Hall. It's a unique facility because it sits right in the heart of Keaukaha Homestead. It's on DHHL land. It also serves as an after-school, almost safe place and program for the Keaukaha Elementary School, the Ka'umeke Ka'eo School. It's a heart of the community for sports and athletics. But although the facility was built and OHA was a major funder of this construction of this facility 20 years ago, there was no operational or maintenance funds dedicated to this facility, which is run by the County of Hawaii today. Well, at the onset of the Mayor Kimo Alameda administration, and I had in early January had a meeting with himself and Representative Chris Todd from Hilo. We talked about how we could pull together resources that for OHA obviously benefits our beneficiaries, serves Native Hawaiian communities, and work on projects together to pull resources together to accomplish what maybe one agency couldn't take on in its entirety themselves. And so this is where this project was born. This is a $10.5 million renovation, of which the state, through Representative Todd's leadership, committed $3.5 million in the state CIP budget to this project. This is signed, sealed, and delivered. Provisoed that the County of Hawaii match dollar for dollar $3.5 million, which Mayor Alameda said he would. OHA's share in this project is the other $3.5 million, which does the $10.5 million renovation for the project and would completely transform this gymnasium that sits in the heart of our Native Hawaiian homestead community. So this is a unique partnership between the state legislature, the County of Hawaii, and the Office of Hawaiian Affairs in a unique cost-sharing partnership to renovate and repair this recreation center on DHHL trust land. The second project is the OHA Washington, D.C. Congressional Fellowship Program. This is another unique co-sharing partnership. Several of us have attended the recent NHOA, the Native Hawaiian-owned business Super 8A conference recently. And this opportunity is for OHA for the very first time to execute a memorandum of agreement with an NHO. And we're in the final stages of securing that agreement in a 1-for-1 match to fund 6 emerging Kanaka OEV leaders that have received their baccalaureate degree to spend 1 year in Washington, D.C. on a paid congressional fellowship. OHA would commit $210,000, and the NHO would commit $210,000 for a total of $420,000. It's estimated that each fellow requires $70,000 in a housing and stipend to live in Washington, D.C. for a year. We have commitments from all 4 members of the congressional delegation, our 2 members in the United States Senate, 2 members in the House, starting in January of 2026 to take a fellow in each of their offices, and also the opportunity to place a fellow on one of the relevant subject matter committees, or even in a relevant federal congressional office in Washington, D.C. So this is up to 6 fellows starting in January 2026 with a 1-for-1 match with an NHO. Next slide. Okay, the next project is the Ulua'e Learning Center expansion. This project is in the heart of Kapolei in West Oahu. We partner with one of these nonprofit organizations that do a lot of good work there in Kapolei. And this opportunity is to construct a learning center, a covered pavilion that will serve on any given day over 80 elementary and middle school students. That's $250,000 in the first year and $125,000 the second year for a total of $375,000. I also forgot, and I apologize since we're on the third project. Each one of these projects is tied to a Mauna I Mauliola strategic outcome, right? And just for the board's refreshing, right? Those 4 strategic outcomes are educational pathways, health outcomes, quality housing, and economic stability. And there are 8 strategies that form each one of these strategic outcomes. So every one of these projects before the board meets some type of Mauna I Mauliola strategic outcome. Okay, the next project, as we jump to the island of Kauai, this is not anything new for the board. Many of you have been there when visiting Trustee Ahuna on the island of Kauai, and that's at Kana'i Olomua Heao, and very special ki'i that Uncle Rupert and Trustee Ahuna, we've been working on procuring, and the opportunity for OHA to purchase this ki'i, transport them back to the island of Kauai, where they will be reinterred and rededicated at Kana'i Olomua Heao. That's one part of the project. The second part of the project is what we're working on right now, where we're about to go into phase 2 of our due diligence for 4 potential property acquisitions, one of them being Kana'i Olomua Heao on Kauai. This project, at least in the conversations we've had with Mayor Kawakami, who seems to be in support of that land transfer and working with the nonprofit there. This would require a total of $1,050,000, where $50,000 would be dedicated to the purchase and the transportation of the ki'i back to Kauai, and $500,000 each fiscal year for what would be the transfer of the Heao to the Office of Hawaiian Affairs under the custodial stewardship of the nonprofit there, led by Uncle Rupert and other community leaders. And this would be the first tranche of financial resources to realize the full vision of the nonprofit and what Uncle Rupert and others have been working on for quite some time there at this very, very special place in Koloa. Next slide. And we'll come back to these as each trustee wants to discuss in further detail some of these projects. Next project is one we've talked about often. I know Trustee Akaka and myself have talked about this regularly, and that's the return of Aha Opio, or OHA, to the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. This program started in 1987. It lasted for about 15 years. For whatever reason, the program had ceased to exist in about the early to mid 2000s, and it's time to bring it back. It's a fantastic program that really allowed the next generation of leaders, myself included, who was a 1991 Aha Opio participant, the opportunity to be immersed in civic education, Native Hawaiian history, public speaking, legislative advocacy, and doing it all in a Hawaiian cultural setting at the state capitol. This accomplishes our educational pathways and strategy number one. The idea is there's $200,000. So this is an increase in what the S&I team had appropriately budgeted. In research that, thanks to the comms team and Auntie Lucy and a few others who pulled historical documents from OHA Appeal and helped us build this funding request. The idea is for 50 appeal, 50 haumana from across the state within their junior to senior year in high school would apply and would be selected to come to Oahu to spend 5 days, basically a Monday through a Saturday here on Oahu. That would need 20 volunteers, and that was the number that had been used in the past. So it's about 70 people to execute OHA Appeal in 2 fiscal years. And so we did some estimation of what that would cost to put 70 people on Oahu for 5 days and the different things that they would do. There may be a little bit of wiggle room in this top line number at 200,000 for each fiscal year, but this will definitely get it done for sure. That's OHA Appeal. Next project is a project that will affect statewide home improvements and renovations. This programmatic funding is $1.5 million. It accomplishes Strategy 5 over quality housing in our Mauna i Maliola strategic plan. The idea is to directly infuse money into Native Hawaiian communities that need and are in desperate need of improvement and renovation for their homes. Many of them on the brink of health and safety concerns, mold, and all kinds of different things. We will partner with nonprofits directly in those communities that are doing this work. And for the most part, for beneficiaries that can't qualify for traditional loans, they can't get a home equity line of credit because they live in a DHHL homestead community. They're income limited, credit limited, and this program will allow us to make a huge impact on home repairs and renovations. This is for the entire state. Next slide. Okay. Can Rochelle? No? You can pass these out. We just received this yesterday. So the next project is, many of us were here when Dr. Keawe Koholokula and the team at the Department of Native Hawaiian Health at JABSOM came to discuss what the good work they're doing centered around Native Hawaiian health. Clearly, this is a Mauna i Maliola strategic outcome under healthcare. And so this program and this proposed funding will help to advance our policies and programs and practices that strengthen Hawaiian well-being, including physical, spiritual, mental, and emotional health. It's one of our strategic outcomes, as well as advance policies, programs, and practices that strengthen the health of the Aina and Mo'ehu. The funding request is $1.75 million. That's $877,000 over both fiscal years. This touches multiple strategic outcomes, including economic stability, health outcomes, and educational pathways. And, just to refresh the board, per Dr. Koholokula's memo, we have a 21% shortage of physicians throughout the state of Hawaii. 24% on Kauai, 40% on Hawaii Island, and 43% on Maui. And this directly translates to limited access to care for Kanaka Oiwi. So what JABSOM is proposing is a partnership with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. Their school, the Department of Native Hawaiian Health, is the only accredited U.S. medical school dedicated to the health and well-being of the indigenous Kanaka Maoli community. They have several different proposals, starting at the bottom of page 2, going to page 3. The workforce development proposal is basically to invest in the next generation of Kanaka Oiwi physicians behavioral health specialists, and health researchers by doing a series of different things. Some of which are to provide direct assistance and mentorship to Kanaka Iwi undergraduate, graduate, and medical students, to sustain and expand postgraduate training in behavioral health, to build a stronger pipeline of community health workers trained in research and chronic disease prevention. On page 3 is the breakdown of the $877,000. So $160,000 will be to support 2 postdoctoral fellows in clinical psychology to provide direct behavioral health services through one of their programs. The second is to support 60 Kanaka Iwi medical students at JAPSOM. That's $120,000 a year. Each student will receive a stipend. The third is to fund 3 Kanaka Iwi graduate students pursuing degrees in health research. These are for Native Hawaiian aspiring doctors at JAPSOM. That's $96,000 a year. Number 4 is to support 50 Native Hawaiian students per year with $2,400 scholarships. That's a total of $120,000 to support their undergraduate and post-baccalaureate student support. Number 5 is to train 6 community health workers around the social determinants of health that will work directly in Kanaka Iwi communities. It's $42,000 a year. And then number 6 is to support 5 key faculty and staff and their salaries and fringe that are going to do all of this work in the first 5 requested funding outcomes. And so if you turn to page 4, the breakdown of their total request is there. And I've asked them to provide any additional information for the trustees if you need some, and also to appear on June 17th when we have our Budget and Finance committee hearing on the overall budget. But this is, I think, a very unique opportunity. And for the amount of resources that OHA would dedicate to Native Hawaiian health at JAPSOM, we're getting a pretty good result over the next 2 fiscal years. Bless you. All right, the next project, sitting right here just a few days ago, is Dr. Puakea Nogomeyer and Avaya Ulu, and the program that talked about reconnecting and bridging knowledge from Native Hawaiian historical resources. So as you remember, they talked about taking 5 individuals and immersing them for the next few years in Avaya Ulu, and wanting to raise $1.8 million a year for 5 years. And I believe that would be a total of a little over $10 million. And they're looking for commitments from, organizations and nonprofits, like OHA. And so our commitment to Avaya Ulu would be $250,000 each fiscal year. If you had, and I hope some of you kept that pamphlet that he had provided on, I think it's on page 4, page 5 is the breakdown of that 1.8 million annually. And so I think what Dr. Nogomeyer wants to do is incredible, and being able to harness his and other indigenous knowledge while they're able to share it is something OHA needs to be a part of, and this is a way for us to do that for a reasonable amount. Next slide. Okay, next project is, we've talked about the opportunity to support post-baccalaureate higher education scholarships, both statewide and maybe in some cases nationwide. So $250,000 for each fiscal year, $500,000 total, accomplishes our educational and economic stability pathways in our strategic outcomes. And the opportunity is for 8 to 10 students who have accomplished their bachelor's degree and would like to seek either graduate or professional degree seeking opportunities, the reduction of those financial barriers to accomplish those. So whether a student wants to seek a master's degree or a Juris Doctorate from the Richardson School of Law through Kahuliao, or their PhD, or to get their MBA, this $500,000 gives us the opportunity to provide 8 to 10 graduate scholarships, the opportunity to do that. Next is our Hawaiian Registry program. We've talked about that, and this this funding request was part of our BSA PIA's funding request. I think they had asked for about $4,800 each fiscal year. We've increased that to $75,000. There's very specific reasons why we think we need to do that and how we can use these resources to grow this program, both locally and nationally for the diaspora of Native Hawaiians that now live in the continental United States. And we'll talk about some unique ways that we can enhance this program through the added resources to do that. Next slide. Okay, the next, I think these are the last two. I added this on here because I wanted to explain this to the board. So we have an opportunity to add in a full-time board legal counsel for the Board of Trustees. Obviously, this requires an update to our bylaws. So that requires, place it on the agenda, requires good spirited debate, requires 2 readings, also requires working together with the administration. But we have an opportunity, and I believe, as we've built, and I hope that I've demonstrated by some of the staff, additions to the Board of Trustees suite that we're building a very, very solid team on the board suite side, and having a full-time board counsel, I think would be very, very beneficial for this board. There's a lot of work to do that really requires a attorney well-versed in corporate law to work together with the corp counsel team on the admin side. And so how this is broken down is continuing with our current contract board attorney through the end of the calendar year. And then if the board so inclines and moves forward to entertain and incorporate this into our bylaws, the opportunity to go out to market and to hire a full-time board counsel starting in January of 2026 for the remainder of the FY26 fiscal year, and then for the entire fiscal year 2027. That would be the salary and the fringe. Currently, right now, the amount we are spending on a Board of Trustee part-time contract counsel, we can have a full-time attorney every day doing contract oversight, helping us with our agendas, helping us with our Roberts rules, being someone who is here all the time. And I in my opinion, it would be a worthy investment for the board to do that. I've included it into the budget, but we can discuss that at length. And like I said, this also requires a bylaws update as well. But I wanted to include it because if we're going to include it in the personnel and fringe for the upcoming fiscal year, and also the contract for the first half of fiscal year 26, then we need to include it in the budget. And then finally, the Board of Trustee and staff professional development, we've budgeted $20,000 per fiscal year. The idea is to do 4 quarterly $5,000 professional staff development trainings with our Board of Trustee staff. As many of you know, through our ad hoc committee, we are increasing their salaries. They were not increased since 2021, and we haven't done any professional development for our staff on a quarterly basis around certain specific things that I think can really help them not only do their jobs better, but work with the administration hand in hand. In addition to the professional development that the administration is planning to do as well. So the opportunity is for us to bring in subject matter experts in best practices, in advocacy, in board administration, in legislation and policy, strategy, communications, crisis communications, things that we deal with on every given day. Next slide. Finally, this is what I'm really excited about. This is the last one. We talked about OHA being an employer of choice. And this is something that I believe can make OHA an employer of choice. In addition to the compensation rates that we have now set thanks to the work of our ad hoc committee. In addition to the telework policy that this board will ratify, at least will bring to the board for ratification this week on Thursday, May 29th. In addition to the salary bonuses, the hiring bonuses that Kapohana has added to specific positions and the in-house referral bonuses. This is something that will separate the Office of Hawaiian Affairs from every state agency in this state who does not offer this currently right now. And I'll give an example. So we currently have about 120 or so employees, and we should have 152 or 160 employees by the end of this budget cycle to do all the great work we need to do. If one of our employees, as an employee works here, they accumulate leave, right? They accumulate sick leave that they can take for various different reasons. Here in the state of Hawaii, we have a Hawaii family leave law that allows up to 4 weeks of unpaid family leave each calendar year for a life-triggering event like a birth or adoption of a child. Also in the state of Hawaii, there's FMLA, also known as Federal Family and Medical Leave. That allows for up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave during any 12-month period. These cover things like birth of a child, care of a family member with a serious health condition, etc. So if you're an employee here at OHA, typically you have to work for one of the state agencies for 6 consecutive months if it's under Hawaii Family Leave Law. And I believe it is 12 months for FMLA, or 1,250 hours over a 12-month period. If you have a child and you want to take leave for that child, you basically have 2 options. You can burn your vacation. I guess, I don't know where the sick leave would fall into it. It's probably just vacation, right? So once you burn your vacation, that's all you got. You're on unpaid leave after that. This, for $188,000 each fiscal year, or $376,000 total, this is an insurance policy that we're working on right now that would offer paid family leave to every single one of OHA's employees. This would set apart the Office of Hawaiian Affairs from every agency in this state who does not offer this. The state legislature failed to pass paid family leave this past legislative session. We can do it in our budget. It will provide up to 12 weeks of 100% pay to one of our eligible staff members for birth of a child, natural birth or surrogacy, adoption and fostering of keiki, care of a sick OHANA member. It will be retroactive to January 1st, 2025, because at least I know there are 3 current OHA employees that have had children since January 1st, 2025. They're all Kanaka. So this provides them an opportunity to take advantage of this as well. This demonstrates OHA as a progressive workplace that aligns with the needs of our diverse population. It is another tool in our toolkit to be the employer of choice in this fiscal year for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. And this is something that doesn't exist anywhere in the state of Hawaii in a government-run agency. And our ability to innovate and be nimble and offer paid family leave through an insurance policy administered by our Human Resources Division will, in my opinion, dramatically enhance the ability for us to recruit new candidates to come here to the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. The combination of our new pay rates, the combination of telework, the combination of paid family leave, of signing bonuses, is going to attract people here to OHA very, very quickly. And we need to be ready for that because we have 26% vacancy rates, and we're going to fill every single one of them. Hopefully by the end of this calendar year, this will allow us to do that. Next slide. So that's the overall summary of the budget. We talked about our policies, our responsibilities, our statutes, our committees, how we're currently staffed, where our spending priorities are dedicated, the goals of those spending priorities, and specific projects, both capital, brick and mortar projects, as well as programmatic funding that accomplish a series of overall strategic objectives, many of which reside in our Mauna i Maliola strategic plan. Next slide. Okay, that's the Mahalo slide. Before we hand it over to questions, I'm going to jump over to our travel worksheet really quickly, because that was just covered in the broad strokes in our slide deck. But for those of you that have the travel worksheets, the Board of Trustees travel, which is $589,000, is on page 50. Starts on page 50. This is the general overview. It's about $294,000 each fiscal year. Each trustee is broken down per their travel. And like we talked about, it includes a significant amount of it is in-state travel. $229,000 is in-state travel, and that's to support and go to all of our neighbor island site visits, as well as other events outside of our neighbor island site visits. It also includes out-of-state travel. Some of the highlights when looking at individual trustees, starting, you're moving past page 51. You know, we annually go to the Kamehameha Day lei draping, and this year trustee is Akaka, and our chair emerita will be joining Hailama in Washington D.C. for the lei draping. Merry Monarch is a annual event that we participate in, as well as our neighbor island meetings. We also have Mea'ai and Mana'o. So 2 trustees can attend those along with our staff. So that's an additional out of neighbor island travel. The National Foundation for Women Legislators Summit and Conference, that is coming up as well. Our trustees, Lindsay and Alapa and Akaka, are slated to attend those in both fiscal years. CNHA's convention is in Washington State in October of 2026 this year, and should be back in state in 2027. We've planned for that. I think those are the majority of the highlights. You know, because I was not aware of, like, we have WIPSI coming up and some other potential international travel in Aotearoa. Some of these things are built into that, so a little bit of little bit of padding in that number to attend those. We also annually go to the PIMCO financial training that our ILM chair and his and many other trustees are participating as well. Common Fund is another one we go to as well. The American Legislative Exchange Council, or ALEC, and their National Policy Summit. Trustee Akina will be attending or has attended that in the past, so we've looked at that. We've talked about our investment training with PIMCO. And that's generally speaking what our travel is. It's a significant amount of money. It's almost $600,000. And there may be things that are not on here that need to be included on here, but this is our kind of our best guess. That chair wraps up the board's budget, and happy to open it up for discussion or for individual projects to be discussed by some of the respective trustees that maybe have a better handle of what those projects are. So appreciate the opportunity, and look forward to working with you on our upcoming board budget.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, for providing all the breakdown on the presentation. Kind of gives us a good idea of what has transpired over the past 2 weeks, going into the details of our budget and finance briefing that we've held. And great. Thank you so much for this, Kai, for you guys putting it together. Kind of gives us the overall view of what we're looking at. Is there anything, any questions, any discussions at this time, trustees? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, great.
Oh.
Thank you very much. And mahalo to Chair Kaele for your presentation. My, obviously, my passion is in civic engagement and how we perform in that arena. And so the comments, maybe not questions, but the comments have to do with the registry program, because that's a part of the capital improvement projects that I certainly want to endorse, right? So it comes down to the increase is sizable, but the total number could be much more, but there's a starting position for everything. And so with regard to the registry and why it's so important, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page here, even if there's disagreement, why the registry is so important, because basically it gives us data, and data is king when making policy. There's no doubt. You cannot make good policy unless you know what you're talking about. And in this particular case, the registry is just a small percentage of what it could possibly be. And in the case of the Committee on Beneficiary Advocacy and Empowerment, this is at the very heart of what we're trying to do in terms of the registry. And I'm kind of speaking, and Kalamaya, kind of speaking to hear myself talk, because I always want to return to the purpose. And there is no state agency existing aside from Board of Health, which deals with birth certificates. There's no other agency, including the Office of Elections, that can provide us with data exclusive to Native Hawaiians, unless I'm wrong. If we want to know how many Native Hawaiians vote, we gotta find out ourselves. There's no other way we can learn. So this is why the registry is so important. Even if it starts from birth to, we can literally pull out the demographics of that. Secondly, from what we've learned, and thank you, Chair, for putting together the budget hearings this past week, because in 1 week I learned more than I learned in 2 years, because we had a chance to drill down and speak specifically to the payas.
Completely agree.
And I learned that there are already existing internal interactions within OHA that we can fortify. When I was listening to Kale and some of the existing programs he has that can literally intersect with the registry and such. So those we need to fortify. So as we move forward to quantifying and qualifying our requests, just know that this is a start where we can actually put together membership campaigns. And I want to thank the Kapuana for increasing the value proposition of the registry with programs like AHO and such. And that's what we want to do. We want to make it a valuable proposition on being on the registry. Why am I on the registry? Well, besides being Hawaiian and being a part of the Lahui, there's also the value of why you might want to sign up. So I'm going to close my remarks by showing my registry card.
Nice.
And I don't want to put pressure on anybody, but in a couple of weeks, pardon me? Oh, I got to turn on the camera. Oh, okay. All right, let me see. A lot of that? Even closer? So anybody in the viewing audience, it's so easy to, and I wanted to put my high school diploma card on down, but the picture rather, but no can. OGs, welcome as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now in a couple of weeks, I'm going to ask everybody to raise their card if they
Sure.
qualify. And please, better be.
Mahalo, Birkungalatira, trustee, and I'd like to move on to Chair Marita Hulu Lindsay.
Mahalo, Chair. And thank you for all the work you did this week. And Chair of our board, mahalo for the hard work you did on your recommendations to the board. Although I may not have been present at some meetings, I have watched every single video of the meeting, so I'm very familiar with what transpired in the week. I just have a few concerns about what we're asking for the budget this morning. In the big projects like JABSOM and Aula. So yeah, I don't feel comfortable about somebody just coming to the board at a BNF meeting and asking for that kind of money and having maybe some kind of commitment from one or two of our trustees. Normally, the process for that kind of big money is for the chair to appoint either an ad hoc, a PIG, or even ask administration to do due diligence so that the trustees have all the background as to approving a $500,000 donation. So, and then it's kind of not fair to anybody else that didn't come to the board during our BNF meetings to ask for money. Maybe they didn't think it was appropriate, or they weren't agendized. They came as community concerns, and all of a sudden, 500,000 appears on our budget. I don't think that's fair. So most of the proposals are wonderful, and I do agree with the chair that this is an avenue that we should take. But when we give outside money, we need to think twice how fair it is to the rest of our beneficiaries. And then I just want to say that the trip to the National Legislators of Women is not paid for by OHA. I just returned $1,700 to administration, which was a reimbursement to me from that association. They offer scholarships for anybody that wants to attend. So I just wanted to clarify that, Chair, that's not one of the travels that we need to pay for. So that's all for now. I'll let somebody else have the floor.
Mahalo Hulu.
Can I just respond to that real quick?
Go ahead.
Mahalo nui, Chair Merida, for the clarification on the travel. The only reason we had an amount in there was because in the budget tables on page 53, it says partially subsidized. So we didn't know what that partial number was. So part of going through these details is an opportunity over the next few weeks for us to narrow down. And if you, in fact, returned resources, then it would be great for us to get a better number on here. And we'd love for you guys' help with that.
To add
Okay.
clarification
Go ahead, Trustee.
to that is often it depends on location, timing, and so forth of the cost of the travel from flight, hotel, car, transportation, and so forth. So it can vary, and there is a travel and lodging scholarship for that. Sometimes it can cover it all, but because we come from Hawaii versus other elected officials that come from other parts of the country that can drive, or it's a closer distance, their cost is not as high. So there can be some costs in there, but mostly the travel and lodge scholarship would take care of all, if not a majority of that cost.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity. I mean, if there's ever a time to put pencil to paper and help us out to get as close to the numbers as possible, especially in your individual travel budgets, now's the time. So we welcome those numbers and input.
So Chair, just before you go away, I just wanted to share that we did give Avai Aulu funds before Trustee Ostender left to the tune of $350,000 and you can verify with Trustee Waihee and Trustee Ahuna. And that was to do translating of the Hawaiian newspapers into English so that it would be kept in our libraries for perpetuity.
Okay, great. Mahalo.
Trustee Kina?
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. And Chair Kahele, thank you for all the hard work on this project. I like the fact that we're strengthening the BOT suite with professionalism and with capacity. That's going to help the organization a lot. It's going to help the trustees. I also like many of these programs, which are great initiatives. But I have questions, and I want to start with just real quick ones. First, with regard to the paid family leave, the amount that you quoted of $376 per biennium sounds wonderful, actually. Do I hear that correctly, that that's an insurance policy that will handle
Yes.
all our needs? And what
Yes.
would it be capped at?
So we've been working for about a month now to do the due diligence with our corp counsel, who manages all of our insurance policies are with our interim general counsel. We have an insurance broker that annually reviews those policies and makes those policy adjustments. We started meeting about a month ago to socialize what a program like this would look like. That broker connected us with a national insurance company that specializes in these policies. There are several other states. New York State is probably one of the leading states in the nation that has incorporated paid family leave across the entire New York State government enterprise. There's different insurance companies that partner with different states that execute this program. And what those insurance policies do, or those insurance companies do, is they look at and analyze your data for your workforce. They look at the historical history of claims, whether it's FMLA or different claims that your current workforce has taken over a period of the last few years. And then they come up with what would be an estimate of how many claims per year we could expect to receive if we incorporated this. And that's the current number that we're dealing with right now.
Now, I'm assuming our HR has looked at this and they consider this matches what the anticipation would be over the next 2 years.
Yeah, we have
for our employee base.
a follow-up meeting at the end of the week, and then we'll be bringing that proposal to HR to review that.
All right, thank you. In terms of the board council, you quoted about 371 for the biennium. And I assume that's partly because the first year here is a half year that's left. But is the first question would be, could any portion of the work that we'd assign to a board council be done by the Attorney General's office? Now, I know there are reasons why we wouldn't want to have wholesale the AG handle our work, but just wondering if we qualify for, or if any of that work could be covered by state funds through the Attorney General's office.
I don't know the answer to that, but we'll find out.
Yeah, that might be a factor if it's feasible, but I do recognize that there may be some caution there. Along with that, are we looking at a salary plus fringe combination here that will be sufficient enough for a very high caliber attorney?
That's correct. That's what this number represents.
Good.
Salary and fringe.
We want the best. With regard to the CIP and program initiatives of the board, my general question is about the philosophy of moving program generation and management from the administration to the board level. And I could see this growing over time. Could you comment on that? What are we thinking in terms of the structure of our corporation, where we're moving traditionally management level work and initiative to the policy board level?
Well, my thought is that we would be working hand in hand with the administration and the different PIA teams that would be executing these programs. Granted, this isn't something that the board has entertained in the past, But I still believe that the trustees have the greatest, connection to their communities and understand where their priorities and needs are the most. And so as long as a program or a capital improvement project aligns with our strategic outcomes, which this board is charged to develop and implement, or not implement, but at least develop and articulate what those strategic outcomes are, that the board should have an opportunity to entertain projects that can affect those strategic outcomes. And some of these aren't here. The home repair program, OHA Appeal, the fellowship programs. These are programs that are a part of some of the strategic outcomes that the PIAs have developed. We have also, as trustees, have been working with those PIAs on developing these projects. But these are, various different projects for the board to consider. I think also the opportunity for the board and OHA to partner with and co-partner with other government agencies, or as an example, an NHO in a cost share 1-for-1 match is a win-win.
Yes.
For OHA and our beneficiaries. And so I think the board should have an opportunity to entertain that.
Well, I would agree with you that the opportunities are great, especially the matching opportunities. And I would also agree with you that board members have a certain perspective because we have a broad connection to our constituents and our beneficiaries, and people come to us. But I'm just concerned that initiatives that come from the board can sometimes be a bit ad hoc. They can bypass the kind of process that we're trying to develop in a very well-tuned organization. And we may be duplicating a bit too. Another question I would have is, how would we, how have the administration vetted the proposals that are before us now?
Some of them they vetted, home repair, OHA Appeal, DC Fellowship to some degree, other board council, other programs they have not. We've socialized them, Keaukaha Gymnasium in with Kapuhana, but not all of these have been worked closely with admin. I would imagine that if adopted by the board in our budget, then there will be, close cooperation with trustees in respective districts or respective communities. Some trustees, like obviously the chair, does a home repair program on Molokai, and so she has subject matter expertise in that. And so working together with admin to execute, I think, is going to be really important.
And naturally, that would be the case. Whatever we would decide, the admin would execute. I'm just concerned about the order, whether it would be prudent to await the due diligence done by the administration on some of these items. Now, in terms of management, what would the role be of the board in terms of following through, looking at oversight of these projects and decisions down the line? What would the board's role versus the administration's role be?
I think it would be case specific depending on the project. As an example, the gym renovation in Hilo, I would imagine the County of Hawaii Parks and Recreation would be the lead on that. So OHA would basically be committing its resources, like the state legislature is committing its resources, and the county is taking the lead on the renovation of the overall project with some level of oversight and involvement with OHA. So I think it depends on the project.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I try to do to help our organization is put myself in a critic's mindset sometimes. I appreciate the fact that you and I were able to sit down with the state auditor, and that represented, I think, a very high level of openness and a willingness to cooperate. So one of the questions I would be thinking, not targeted toward anyone at all, but toward myself at least, is how, when we're dealing with CIP, capital improvement projects, do we avoid the appearance of what takes place at the legislature and at the county quite frequently in terms of what critics call pork, that you have particular district politicians who bring back to their district certain capital amounts for capital improvement and so forth, who benefit from that by being known for what they do for their people and getting elected on that basis. Just some thoughts about how we can avoid that kind of conflict of interest. And what I have enjoyed being us having here at OHA is that when we act in concert. It's not so much the project of a trustee. Just your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I share your concerns, and you know, there have been examples in the past of you know, what you described, you know, at the legislature. I think for the most part, the projects that the state legislature funds do tremendous good in the community, and the projects that we've proposed, I think will do tremendous good in our Native Hawaiian community. Considering other things that this organization has spent money on in the past, these are not them.
Yeah.
And I would never bring something before the board that didn't do that.
And I know your heart, Chair,
Yeah.
and don't question that at all. I just want to be candid with the board. I feel a bit uncomfortable, not about what we want to do. What we want to do is magnificent, and I am all for taking the funds that we steward and grow and using them in order to better the conditions of Hawaiians and Native Hawaiians. And that's the intent I see here. But the speed with which we've developed a new direction here just leaves me a bit uncomfortable for the reasons I've mentioned. And I just want to be candid about that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thank
you're
you
welcome.
for
I appreciate it.
the intention.
And the beauty of this is we have a couple weeks
Yes.
to vet projects, to answer questions, to do some due diligence so that we can feel comfortable with whatever comes before the BNF committee, and then ultimately the board, right, for adoption at the end of June. And we've tried to we gave all the way to June 30th for this board to adopt the final budget, because we wanted to give every trustee enough time to do the background work they needed, and for their staff to do the background work they needed to make sure that these projects were worthy of our support. So I look forward to working with you on those.
Mahalo. Oh,
I just wanted to address what you were asking about, which is a valid question about legal counsel and the use of AG, Attorney General's Office. So it's been my experience that the AG is meant to serve every agency, right? Which means that for us to get a quick answer is kind of almost impossible. So basically, I think what we're being asked to consider is a little bit more expedience in our legal acumen, if you will. I just wanted to share that with you because it is a valid point, because AG is everybody's lawyer, is everybody's legal. But to expedite opinion could be a part of this, judgment call. Yeah.
okay, so here's the order of those who have their hands raised. We're going to go with Dan Ahuna, followed by Trustee Souza, followed by Chair Marita, and CEO. All right, go ahead, Dan.
Thank you so much. First of all, I just wanted to thank, the entire board, staff, and everyone pitching in and doing the work on this budget. And I just want to thank everyone for that. Something that's very important to me is, I have respect for all trustees and why they get elected into OHA. And a lot of times they get elected because there's a lot of people who like them and they get more votes than the other person. And with that, the types of things that they want to do is the reasons why these people vote for them. So, I respect that so much that I just wanted to share my support for the things that each trustee and their staff is doing. Especially on my island, we've been working on these projects for over 10 years, and yet we haven't done anything. OHA has invested lots of money and we haven't done anything. And it's time we do something with all the money and research that we've invested. So I just want to thank Chair for putting this budget together, and I want to support this budget 100%. And the reason why is because everyone has input, and I want to support everyone's input, whether I like it or not. One of the big things, when I look at these projects and these investments, especially capital improvement projects, is the community they serve. And I'm from the island of Kauai, but I know Keaukaha very well. The Ahunas is a big family in Keaukaha, and that community serves a lot of our beneficiaries. Let me tell you, a lot of the beneficiaries, but one of the biggest and most amazing things that happened in Keaukaha was the building of that gym. This gym is not a small little gym, it's a big gym, and it serves a lot of our people, and especially in that community. And um to go there and see the magnitude and see the thousands of kids that play in this gym every single day is so important to that community. And I just wanted to say and thank the people behind all these projects. And it means so much to their island and their people and the way they live and how they serve their community. So just like Kaneola Uma, I think it's very important at this time for us to go and support Uncle Root with some of the things he's doing. And we did a lot of research. We put a lot of time in it from OHA standpoint. So I think it's the right choice. So I just wanted to thank Chair for putting this all together and making this happen. And I want to support. The second thing was I was trying to get in on this conversation with Brick. About the registry. And the reason why I want to thank you, Chair, is because your presentation was so outstanding that in the beginning of your presentation, you talked about Chapter 10 and our fiduciary obligation to Chapter 10. And one of the obligations and our what we have to do to serve our beneficiaries is this benefit, this registry. So I wanted to ask Trustee Galatera, was he asking, well, what was your question? Were you asking for more? I mean, what do we need to support this? Because this is one of our supports. And I just wanted to try to understand your question, because this is Chapter 10. This is our job, and this is something that is very important. So that was my second part to that question. But thank you everyone for your input.
Yes. Yeah, Trustee, there was no question attached there. I just wanted to advocate for the increase in the funding for the registry and how we proceed. That was it.
So Trustee Galatera, I have to share one thing with you that on Kauai that I mean, it's a sad story, but a lot of our prisoners who don't get out, they don't have an ID, but in Kauai you can work and get you can work for money. But it's funny because you can't even go to the bank because you don't even have a identification to tell who you are and stuff. And the one thing about this card that helps our some of the inmates who's trying to make it outside is that it has a seal, a state stamp seal on top, and it helps them at least withdraw and put their money in the bank, and helps them on their way, transition stuff. So I just wanted to make sure that we support this registry and Chapter 10 and part of who we are as OHA, and get behind what our real job is about. So thank you so much for that, Trustee. Aloha.
Mahalo, Madam Chair. Mahalo, Chair Kahele. Great presentation. And Stacy, to you and your team, administration this last couple of weeks as well. They did a great job. It's not an easy time talking about budget, but in a month or so, we'll be ready to go. I've been hearing a lot of things about, traditionally, this is not how we operate. It hasn't been the trend. It's not how we operate. We operate differently all of a sudden, right, in the last few months. And we're going in the right direction. And to me, by the board proposing CAP projects, there's still a process, right? Versus administration proposing projects, right? And going through their own process. We're just proposing it, right? We're creating a budget for it. At the end of the day, it gets vetted. And if it's not something that's, legit, off the par with or aligns with our strategic plan, administration will determine that, right, at the end of the day. For us, a lot of these projects we've identified because we're out there in the community. Well, one example, Uluwa'e, thank you, Trustee Akaka, for setting up that site visit for all the trustees to see, right? So we actually go there. I heard a comment earlier about certain individuals coming to present to the board. There's an opportunity at every single board meeting for public testimony and opportunities for people to bring their wants and needs to this board as well. I don't think we're trying to get in the way of that process. We're just trying to help expedite the process, right? Getting our things aligned with our strategic plan in a timely manner. So I fully support this budget. Again, the question is, same thing we asked administration, what else do you need? Tell us, right? I feel that this board, individually, we put together our budgets, travel, CIP projects, training, whatever it may be. I think we did that to the best of our ability, and I don't question anyone at this point. I'd like to potentially find out more information this next coming weeks, but I fully support this budget. So mahalo, thank you.
Mahalo. Trustee Lindsay?
Thank you. Chair, I just wanted to ask you, while you were presenting, why Hawaiian Homes was not part of the group that's improving the gym. You named the county.
Yeah, that's a great question. We have had discussions with the DHHL land agent in Keaukaha. And, obviously they play a important role as well because the gym sits right in the heart of the Hawaiian Homestead community. I guess working with Director Watson or Mike Kalekini, the DHHL Commissioner for East Hawaii, there could be some type of additional partnership with DHHL. Mayor Alameda and Councilman Fresho Nishi have been taking the lead on that. And so I'm sure they will be a part of it as well. We're actually supposed to have a meeting this week in Hilo with the entire team. They've been working on this for several years now. And so I'll make sure that that's brought up and that a DHHL representative is there.
Thank you. The second question I have is, I see a lot of money going out, but I don't see any money appropriated for Kaka'ako. And if nothing else, we should move in our cultural center. I believe you folks have had meetings with Mayor Blangiardi, which I originated with Governor Lingle. And then you further met with Esther Kia'aina, and Esther asked for a plan of this cultural center. So I wanted to know what is the status of that plan.
That's a great question. So the administration has included in their budget about $350,000 for plan design for a Native Hawaiian Culture Center. So that was an add in the land division's budget that is not in the budget tables currently, but will be on June 2nd. Yeah, and our chair, you'll be Emerita, you'll be part of those as well. So yes, there is plans for a Native Hawaiian Cultural Center funding to do that in the next biennium budget cycle. And of course, Chair Souza working together with Paul and Linda have been working on specific lot parcels as well, and I'll defer to him.
Yeah, Chair Emerita Lindsay, and thank you, Kai. We are working on a whole bunch of things actually in the ILM committee. Nothing to bring to the board at this time, but we will be bringing you a brief very, very, very soon, as soon as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stacy?
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yep, I can tell you guys.
Mahalo, Chair. This is more of a comment, possibly a recommendation. So I love the direction that we've moved with the budgeting process. I think it speaks volumes in terms of our trustees wanting to provide the highest level of transparency and fiduciary responsibility and prudence to our beneficiaries. So mahalo for that. And coming from being the budget chief, I can appreciate the work that it takes to provide this level of transparency and the high quality of work that's expected by this board. So mahalo for that. What I did want to say is, the CIP is brand new to these budget requests. In the typical budgeting process, CIP is separate from operations. And so I know we've kind of like, everything has been thrown into one bucket. And I'd like for the trustees to, and if it's not in this budget, maybe it's in 27, that we carve out CIP separately, because CIP is not operations. So what we should have in front of us is an operational budget for what it's going to take to run program services and our fixed costs. However, CIP, being as important as it is to meeting the needs of our communities, is that we purposefully and meaningfully carve out a dollar amount each fiscal year that we want to put towards non-OHA assets, such as the gym or the Kaniolo Uma Heiau complex and the school out in Kapolei. We do have carryover funds of $5 million. And so, as not to maybe again put everything all in one, could we parcel out all our CIP projects and apply the $5 million carryover funds to that, and then that way we balance our operational budget based on operational needs? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely consider it. And I also think that we can also break glass too. And we can change the way that we do budgets here at OHA and include these types of projects in our operational budget as well. There's a way to do anything, right? And this board can do that if it chooses to do that. But we welcome your suggestions on how to do that and what would be some of the best practices to do that.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Stacy. Helps us to understand where and what we can do, especially for something of this nature with the CIP for the first time. I believe that our trustees have these opportunities to help and give back to their own communities. And I appreciate that. So we can move forward and do a lot more due diligence in that respect. Go ahead, Trustee Akaka.
The CIP projects, I think that it would be helpful for no more page numbers, this one here. Yeah, starting with the CIP after the map, the Haina map. So I do agree in terms of due diligence that it would be helpful for the board to receive, for the administration to have the opportunity to know what the interests are so that there can be proper due diligence with the entity that it might be, to go hand in hand, and then provide that to the board so that we can make an analytical decision, and then we can feel strong in that, and as we go to the communities, be able to stand on that decision and so forth. I also feel with the request that came to the board regarding the CIP request, because that was not the norm. I think part of the thinking was, well, what is this? How is this going to transpire? And it being a rather quick turnaround. So as time had progressed, there are some other locations that came to mind, at least for Oahu. Some of what I think of is places that we have visited individually or as a group. One of them, for instance, being Iolani Palace. That being one of them in terms of what it takes to upkeep and maintain. And I know that they have the upcoming elevator renovation. As we know, within our own Nalamukukui, that is something when it comes to historical building, something that there's cost and a lot of work around that affects the workflow as well. And then I was thinking of also the Ali'i Olani, the Hale, the judicial building, and how that could use some TLC as well. But there's so many potential CIP opportunities. I think that given more time, and if this is the new thing, that we'd be able to have that opportunity with more of that buffer of time. Okay. So, and then going with the OHA Washington DC Congressional Fellowship, I had mentioned this before, but just to revisit this. So, since 2017, that was formerly known as the Native Hawaiian Congressional Fellowship. And then in time, then it was changed to the name of Daniel Kaikinakaka Congressional Fellowship. And that was a partnership with Kamehameha Schools. And I would like to know, is that something we're revisiting where Kamehameha Schools is going to partner with that? Or is, we don't know?
No,
No. Okay. Did they say that they were not interested?
we didn't approach them. You're welcome to approach them.
Okay, okay.
Sure.
I had asked High Lama in terms of the history, and it sounded like maybe it didn't continue the fellowship because of maybe COVID. Oftentimes that happens. I'm not quite sure, but I'd be interested in looking more into that.
Yeah, would welcome you to look to that.
Thank you.
Currently, we have an NHO that is willing to dedicate 1-for-1 match in resources. So if Kamehameha would like to dedicate 1-for-1 match resources, we can add more fellows.
What NHO is that again?
I'd rather not say the name since they're still in the process.
Okay.
And I would also add, and so that's something great that you brought up. The message that we took to the recent NHOA conference, and the chair and Trustee Souza, myself were there, resonated with many of the NHOs as it relates to their community give back programs. This is just one of the several interested initiatives on this budget sheet that every NHO is interested in partnering with us on. So we're essentially, you know, if the board supports this, we're willing to present a buffet of community give back options for NHOs that to dedicate, you know, in some cases, several $100,000s of matching funds to partner with us on some of these projects. And this is just one of them.
So in the end, the cost probably won't be that figure. It would be
Exactly.
maybe half of
I'm
that. or
hoping
fraction
if
of that.
we just had the conference 2 weeks ago, if we had more time and meeting with every NHO that has the capacity to do community give back. As an example, probably the most established NHO and the one that generates a significant amount of gross annual revenues, almost $500 million a year, dedicates $4 million in community give back annually.
I can guess which one you're talking about now.
210,000 for them is a small fraction of their total community give back. So they're emphatically excited to support and partner with us on this. And I think that memorandum and that co-partnership and established relationship is going to open the door for other NHOs to do that, which is a goal of the Kapuana and Trustee Galataria in previous board action, right, is to establish those deeper relationships with the NHO program, the Super 8A program. Yeah, Trustee Galataria?
Yeah, and you know, to follow up on that, there is, when the 8A program was started by, you know, Senator Inouye, your granddad, it was meant as almost a response to non-recognition, where they're going to give us something, but they're not going to recognize us. I'm talking about the feds. This is SBA now. But nothing was in the provision that actually outlined what the give back was. So it's almost like whatever, you know, 1% of $1 million is a lot of money, but 1% of $1 billion is a lot more money. And I think the NHOs are beginning to now coalesce behind the idea of a regulated give back system. And they're the ones who got to do that because SBA will not mandate the give back. So it's almost like within the community of NHOs. But I think they want to talk to us. It's amazing how much they want to speak to OHA because they want they want support, and they also could use partnerships for us too.
And I think, the goal behind this and hopefully it grows to be something bigger is that OHA is looked at as the agency of choice for philanthropy, for nonprofits, for NHOs to partner with and bring money in, right? Rather than money going out, we've got money coming in because we have demonstrated that we know where the greatest needs in our beneficiary communities are. We have demonstrated the ability to execute programs that make a tremendous impact in the lives of our Kanaka Maoli, and we're respected in that way. Not to say that we aren't today, but by demonstrating that, I think we end up bringing money in, and we know where these basically ready to go, shovel ready projects are for potential donors. And so I think this is just one of many that I hope will pave that pathway.
Malo, Madam Chair, and in addition to what Chair Kahele and Trustee Galateri just said, and first of all, that was a great presentation that we gave there. And as soon as we left that stage, they were coming up to us. These organizations, these 88 guys, big time. Hey, let's talk about those certain projects you guys are talking about. Opportunities, we've identified them, right? We're not only the employer of choice, we're the organization of choice for these guys who there is really no give back stipulation at the end of the day. And so that partnership, just to be recognized in that space, is huge, just so this board understands. But anyway, Mamo.
Yeah, sorry, Trustee Akaka, but go back.
Go ahead,
Back to your time.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry about that.
So going back to the general due diligence, I think that it would be key for us to have that when it comes to the Ulua'e, including the Ulua'e Learning Center expansion. I'm glad that we had that opportunity. Trustee Souza, you had asked that we tour that facility, I believe. So that was really nice to get a in-person experience. I think oftentimes our site visits are specifically so we can have that mental investment or even the understanding if this is something that we can give more attention to fiscally or just whatever capacity we can. So for the Ulua'e Learning Center expansion as well as the DNHH at JAPSOM for workforce development and the Avaya Ulu as well as the post-baccalaureate higher education scholarships. So I think due diligence would be helpful and all that. I know that when I often think of this when the FESPAC had approached us with the funding and so forth. I know that you had said, oh, I want to give you guys $3 million if I could. And at the same time, we have what we have because of the funds that we receive from the legislature. And I think this brings to our approach and advocacy and receiving more of that, what should be 20%, which is 3 to 4, 5% is so far from 20% that we're receiving. And then going back to that topic of FESPAC, at that time for me, part of the decision making was thinking, geez, if we put that same amount or more into, let's say, for instance, a rural health center in one of the rural communities, the generational impact we would have. So that's how I'm thinking in terms of long term with the CIPs and so forth, and having the opportunity to get a more of an opportunity if this is the approach that we go from that angle. So to add to that, so for the outside counsel and full-time BOT legal counsel, is it where the in-house counsel, that would be the same person as we currently have as our board counsel, or would that be a totally separate person or group of people?
It likely would be a separate person.
Okay. Have we looked at the opportunity for it to be the same person, just expanding on their time? If
I
they're
mean, our current board counsel is part-time and has a significant legal practice
Yeah.
that, and to be quite honest, it's a litigating legal practice, not a sit at this board table for 8 hours and advise us on Robert rules.
Because I understand when it comes to the AG's office, they have Kuleana throughout the state. We wouldn't be their only client slash Kuleana, so there might be some things that might be, I don't want to say in conflict, but competing views. So I could
Right.
see how it would be helpful for us to have somebody in-house, because normally the practice has been is that if trustees are seeking that legal consultation from the board counsel, we would have to go through the board chair, as the costs can vary and up more than maybe what that trustee might have known it would have cost. So that with that, Kuleana.
Yeah, and just like our chief of staff is your chief of staff, this board counsel is your board counsel.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the way I view it. And I just think it'd be a great resource to our board team and further strengthen the team we already have.
Thank you. So regarding the paid family leave, I think yeah, this goes hand in hand with the health benefits conversation that we were having with Corey. And I think it's wonderful if, being that we are an agency that is created to strengthen Ohana.
Mhm.
Another thing I'd be interested in us looking into, I had mentioned previously, but looking at the capacity regarding our medical plan. My understanding is that there is one or some that have had the same medical plan at another entity. Now they are employed here at the Office of Foreign Affairs, so they have that same medical plan and they're paying almost 2 times more than what they were paying previously.
So maybe, I think that's something Capuana can run down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not familiar with our medical plans.
Yes.
That's a state administered plan that every state employee gets, Capuana, not sure.
Yes, and I when I had asked in terms of what can we look at beyond what our current health plan is providing within the I guess you could say the as a state agency, what we are able to do. I was also given the example by Trustee Aquina's key member, Remy. I had asked, do we know of any government agency within the state of Hawaii that is doing it differently, that is better than what we're doing? Medical wise. And my understanding from what I have found is that the Kauai County, they have free health insurance for the entire family. Full premiums and administrative costs for the employees enrolled in Kaiser Standard, HMO or HMSA 7525 PPO health plans, and it includes self-only, two-party, and family tiers. So I don't know if that, I know that they're county, but they are a governing body.
Look into it, we, for our beneficiaries, 64.5% is the fringe that is on top of the gross annual salary that an OHA employee receives, and that goes to pay for, that goes to pay for medical, dental, life insurance, and that package, so.
Wait, turn.
Kalamai. I think because you're referencing the county, they probably have more autonomy on how they structure their individual county plans versus we're a state entity. So we're, with the state plans.
I think then maybe part of our role here too is, if we are limited, but seeing to what depth we can go to on this. And I know that it was mentioned AFLAC, but there are different things that we can look at beyond what we're offering currently to explore that, but the advocacy legislatively to really push that, hey, we're trying to be an employer of choice, as you should be, I would imagine, the legislature and so forth, and other state governing agencies that might be in the same situation as us. there are many that are working not at full capacity for the same reasons that we are.
Yeah.
Because the health benefits are not so good, the pension isn't what it used to be, the retirement, paid family leave, it's not where it's at, right?
I would even go as far to say there's very few private companies in Hawaii that would be offering this benefit to their employees, including a retroactive look back to the start of this year, 12 weeks in small increments, not like you have to take all the 12 weeks in one space, but if you have a seriously ill family member, birth of a child, I mean, this is an incredible benefit that when you're looking at a $49.5 million annual budget, and this is a $188,000 investment, this puts us on the employer of choice map. No doubt about it.
So just to give from a corporate standpoint, in my experience in our Ohana, what was one of the options that was provided to us was that there was a leave for 8 weeks with 100% pay, and then up to 6 months additional for 50% pay. Because sometimes that is needed for whatever reason. But I think we can look at maybe some corporate standards and then what some of the Hawaii government agencies are doing, and maybe do some comparisons in terms of what can and what makes sense.
And these, you know, a lot of this particular initiative, in some cases came out of some of the PIA conversations that we've had from current staff who have birthed children and have had multiple children while employed here at OHA, and have had to basically burn all of the vacation or sick leave they had, and then had to take leave without pay, were basically required to come back to work within 4 to 6 weeks after childbirth because they had no choice, then are confronted with $1,000 a month childcare. This is something that I think is also important for our values here at OHA, are the Hawaiian values that we have around family and Ohana. So I think it's a good step in the right direction, but we'll look at some of the other suggestions you've made as we put this together as maybe a first step forward.
Yeah, another thing to look at possibly, I had mentioned it previously, is the keiki and kupuna care. I know that was part of what we were looking at for our Kaka'ako property to have there, but maybe even subsidizing that cost, or if not providing that on property or near a nearby property, as many of us face that at one point or another, where whether it's our keiki's health or our elders,
Yep.
our kupuna's health. And then just one more thing regarding the JABSOM proposal, the specific figure regarding the clinical psychology postdoctoral fellows. I do believe this is something that is of great importance when it comes to mental health and so forth.
Yep.
And at the same time, I was thinking.
Which number is that, trustee?
It's page 3 of
Yep.
this handout.
Number one.
Under
Number one.
requested
Yep.
funding. That specific number of 160,000, and that's just 2 individuals.
Yep.
I would like to visit that to kind of give more
Sure.
clarity as to the cost benefit.
Yeah. Like I said, this is when they came to present and we asked, what do you need? This is what they need. This is a buffet of options. We can pick one, we can pick none. But this is an opportunity for us to do something for Native Hawaiian health at JABSOM.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to connect you with Dr. Kaholakula, and you can dive deep into number 1.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
Go ahead, Trustee Lindsay.
Trustee Souza had his hand up first. Okay, thank you. While we were talking about the NHO, I remember asking administration to look into the possibility of OHA having an NHO. so that we would be in a position to get monies from other places that we cannot get today. I also considered a nonprofit, so that if there was some way that it would be advantageous to our agency or our beneficiaries, that would be available. So I just wondered if that would be something that we can entertain.
You know, Chair, that's a great subject you brought up, and it was one of the things that we discussed when we were at the NHO conference. And fortunately, our chief of staff, Silva, in a previous life in a law firm she worked with in New York, connected us with a law firm in Washington, D.C. that specializes in this. And so we're definitely having the conversation and of course working with Kapohana to make sure that it's completely vetted out. What won't happen obviously in this immediate budget cycle, but I think it's something that OHA should take a look at and consider. So we're talking to the subject matter experts in how to do that.
Oh, thank you.
Aloha, Chair
Okay.
Merita. And we did follow up on the nonprofit. And so the answer is yes, we can do a nonprofit. But similar to our LLCs, it would have its own set. It would be separate from the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, right? It would have its own board. You know, it would be a standalone entity. So, and I imagine the NHOA would be the same.
And
Okay.
I think, Chair, one of the advantages is the biggest obstacle for a young or a Native Hawaiian entrepreneur who wants to start an NHO, and if it's a Super 8A NHO, right, recognized under the SBA and those guidelines, with the intent to apply for sole source federal contracts, specifically DoD contracts. It varies depending on the amount. The biggest obstacle that they have in making that business successful is the access to capital, because the money doesn't come up front from the federal government if you are able to secure a federal contract.
Right.
And many companies don't last, and they end up going into financial ruin because they borrow from their homes, they leverage all of their credit and assets to get their business going, and more do not succeed than have succeeded. Why it would potentially be advantageous for OHA to pursue that path is because we have
Right.
what most startup
Capital.
NGOs don't have. We have the capital.
Yeah. That's how I thought too.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for looking into that.
Yeah. Yes.
I have just another follow-up comment that I wanted to make on the board council subject. I was told by the old timers on the board over 13 years ago that we moved into our own board council because almost every single year of OHA's life, we have sued the state of Hawaii. And that puts us in conflict of interest with the Attorney General's office. So out of desperation, they went into this board council situation where we can choose our own board council and trust that we're getting fair representation. So I just wanted to share that. And that certainly makes sense as we're sitting here with two suits against the state of Hawaii that we need to decide on in the near future. So just sharing with you.
Oh, thanks for that historical point. Yeah, for sure. And again, you know, this in order for this to happen, you know, this requires a bylaws update, revision to our bylaws to do that. But the intent is, if it is budgeted in our budget, whether or not we end up bringing a full-time board council on or continuing it with the contract, this wouldn't go into effect until January of 2026. So my plan would be, if there was support and this is included in the budget, then probably sometime in late summer, early fall, we would bring it to the board via our bylaws amendment under the board staff page. That would require 2 readings and a 2/3 majority of the board to adopt. And then we would working together with the board chief of staff and general counsel, we would draft a position description for the board of trustees, board counsel for a full-time board counsel, what we're looking for, put that out to market, along with all the other great things that we're bringing to the table to attract a high quality, high caliber, board counsel, bring it to the board for interview, onboard them, start them early January.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we've already thought about where that office space would go. So, yeah.
Trustee Souza?
Mahalo, Madam Chair. And Kai, I just want to say again, mahalo for reaching out to every trustee and giving us an opportunity to submit, a potential CIP project, whether it's in our community, whether it's something we've all identified statewide, or whether it's just simply because it aligns with our Maui Mauliola strategic plan, right? Simple. For example, because Kalei touched on certain things and doing due diligence, we have a couple of weeks to do our due diligence. We've had a few weeks already. For example, certain projects, if not most, are partnerships, right? We're not the sole funder for these projects. For example, Uluwa'e, they already secured 175,000 of CIP monies from the state. They have private donors, individual donations as well. So a lot of these, either nonprofits or different agencies, they're looking to partner up with OHA. And I think we're moving, again, it's a new time for OHA. We're moving to partner up, whether it's the HHL, whether it's the city, the state on projects. And again, we all have time to reach out. The executive director for Uluwa'e, she will be coming on the 17th to present, knowing that this is a part of our budget and something that we are looking at. So instead of reaching out, if you'd like to, can put you in contact, or you can refer a presentation as well.
I think we also provided a sponsorship for them, right?
We did. And for example, this is a nonprofit as well who has come to OHA before in the past, who's never gotten anything because they right under the cutoff, right? Through our process, our grants process. But this is a different opportunity for us to support them, especially in the Kapolei community, where, shucks, I'm going to give you an example. Kapolei High School is one of the best schools. And now because of the drugs, the violence, parents working multiple jobs in our community aren't able to keep an eye on their kids simply because they're trying to after school programs. So the out of school programs, which is what Uluwa'e supports. And with this opportunity, they'll be able to serve 80 more students. And now of that population that they already serve, 30% are from underserved communities, right? From Eva, talking the homesteads in Kapolei to Nanakuli. 80% of that are Native Hawaiian beneficiaries on average. So I just want to shine light on that as well. So mahalo. Thank you.
Any other questions for discussion? Go ahead, Kalei.
Mahalo. So revisiting the Native Hawaiian organizations conversation, I think that's something that administratively, in our comms team, have a firm tight hold in terms of the communication that will be essential/required when it comes to the partnership, so that OHA's name doesn't get lost along the way.
Right,
I think
absolutely.
that's part of looking at us having an internal NHO, or one more pili to us is OHA's name gets lost along the way, and then people are left to think, what is OHA what do they do? How does that even affect us? And that whether it's partnerships or having something in-house, then we're able to share on how large the footprint is in terms of how our mission and our strategic plan is being effective.
Yeah.
Mahalo.
Mahalo. Go ahead, Trustee Galutera.
Yeah, just to follow up on the NHO, way before we started talking to them directly, Kapuana had come up with a initiative that she was going to eventually bring to the board, where we provide a pathway to NHO ownership, right? And what that would do is, if you come through the OHA pathway, you are required to give back. And that to me is another way by which, it's empowerment too. So I just wanted to bring another side of the picture to you, because Kapuana was working on that for a bit.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion, trustees?
I guess in just my closing, comments, I really look forward to working with all of our trustees. This is if there is a time for sausage making, it's now. You know, Kapuana's gonna come back to us on June 2nd. She's got a tall order. She's got a lot of things to think about and consider when she brings the revised budget to us that looks dramatically different than what it looked like in late April. And then we'll have an opportunity to shape that budget and bring it before you on June 17th. So we welcome your due diligence, your input. We want this to be the best OHA budget
Yes.
that we can put forth for our beneficiaries within the resource constrained environment without doing things that raise caps or do things that we don't need to do, because I think we can put a fantastic budget together for the resources that we have and make us whole, like you said. So
The chair.
mahalo.
And we all know that sausage making is messy. That's what we're going through right now.
And mahalo our staff.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
I did not put this presentation together. I want to thank my staff, Alina and Summer, for putting this presentation together over the weekend. You know, it takes right? It takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a team to put something like this together. And I'm very, very proud of our team and all of our OHA Board of Trustees staff that put a lot of time and effort into it, to include Pohai and Summer, who have worked very, very hard and have fed us well at the end of these long deliberations. So mahalo, looking forward to the next couple weeks.
Mahalo for that. I'm looking forward to it as well. Just heads up, we do have lunch provided for our board staff, and we can't wait for that. I'm hungry. So also, if there's anything else, I'm going to call for a motion to adjourn. And second is so. Mahalo, may I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Ahuna,
Aye.
Trustee Akaka,
Aye.
Trustee Akina, Trustee Galutaria, Trustee Lindsay, Trustee Souza. Vice Chair Waihee. Vice Chair Waihee, come on. Oh. And Chair Lakma.
Aye.
Okay. All accounted